Lich's ultimate Chain Frost seems simple. You see it and you know to run away from your teammates, unless you want to troll them and get reported. But there are some surprising mechanics behind this spell that you probably haven't noticed. Today I'm going to break down the interesting parts of this spell to help you better understand how Chain Frost actually works, and maybe even inspire you to play Lich yourself. When you use Chain Frost, it bounces between enemies, dealing magic damage and applying a movement and attack slow. It can bounce up to 10 times or even more if you have the growing cold facet. Each bounce increases the damage, meaning the more bounces, the more damage it does on each hit. With the max 10 bounces, it can deal a total of 6,625 magic damage before reductions, which is a lot. One cool trick is that leveling up Chain Frost while it's active will increase its damage while it's bouncing. So if you're quick during a teamfight, you can output even more damage. So who does Chain Frost bounce to? This person or that person? It's actually pretty simple. It's random. It chooses an enemy within a 600 radius of the target. Once it hits, it repeats the process, picking another random enemy within 600 units of the next target. The first projectile moves fast at 1050 speed, and the following bounces are a bit slower with a 0.2 second delay and 850 speed. Just remember, an enemy has to be within 600 radius to keep the bounces going, and for reference, 600 is the same radius as Sinister Gaze, so you can use that to gauge the bounce range. Speaking of Sinister Gaze, did you know that channeling it gives Chain Frost an instant cast time? You can also cast it without facing the enemy you target, and it won't interrupt your channeling. This works for all of Lich's other spells too, not just Chain Frost. This is really useful when you need to cast Chain Frost quickly, like when an enemy is about to blink or run away. Normally the spell has a long and very obvious cast animation, but this trick lets you bypass that and get it off faster. Also, Chain Frost cannot be disjointed. Once it's cast, it will follow its target even if they blink or teleport away. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, consider subscribing for more videos like this. We're close to 30k subs, so maybe consider clicking the button. Thanks. Now let's dive into which units Chain Frost can and can't bounce to. It can bounce to units hidden in Fog of War, and if you're curious about how Fog of War actually works, I've got another video on that. It can also bounce to and from hidden units, but it won't bounce to a unit that's already hidden until they reappear. If an enemy has a spell block source like a Lincoln Sphere, Chain Frost will bounce to them without triggering the block. However, if you cast it directly on them, the initial hit will be blocked, but it will still bounce to nearby enemies as usual. It won't bounce to invisible units unless you have vision of them, and if a unit is invulnerable, like when they're Yules, it won't bounce to them unless the projectile is already traveling towards them. Chain Frost also won't target couriers, and it won't bounce to or from undying zombies. Chain Frost bounces to a random unit within a 600 radius. This is what we've already learned, but Icespire, Lich's Aghanim Shard upgrade, is a bit different. Icespire creates a structure that slows nearby enemies and allows Chain Frost to bounce to and from it. This is useful when the enemy you want to target isn't near any other units. If you cast Chain Frost on the Icespire, it behaves just like usual, bouncing to a random unit within 600 radius. However, if you cast it on an enemy and both another enemy and your Icespire are within the 600 radius, Chain Frost will always prioritize bouncing to the enemy first. It'll only bounce to the Icespire if no enemies are within the 600 radius. So don't feel scared to use Icespire on two enemies who are stacked on top of each other. Chain Frost will still bounce back and forth between them. Keep in mind that every time it bounces to your Icespire, that counts as one of its 10 bounces. Lich's level 20 talent, Chain Frost on Death, launches a Chain Frost when Lich dies, but with a slightly larger search radius of 750, compared to the usual 600. One important note, this doesn't trigger if Lich dies with Aegis, although when do you ever have an Aegis as a Lich? If you do, maybe your goal isn't to actually win, it's just to get reported. A very special thank you to the awesome people over on Patreon for supporting me and my content. Umut, Tilted Ward, the Titan Forge, Mark, Aaron, and Ole. I've been streaming more recently, so go check out my Twitch if you want to watch me live and chat with me about my games. I love seeing when people come by from these videos. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I hope you learned something new with me.